Good morning and welcome to the Fife Properties Show. Today we're talking about flower power, how to create a garden that you love and a garden that will sell. So joining me today is Jim Parker. How are you today,
Good,
Jim?
good morning. It's great to see someone else hosting the show.
Well, thanks for trusting me with it. And we also have Jimmy Mullen,
How
one
you
of our
doing?
estate agents. How are you, Jimmy?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Andrea. Busy
That's
day
good.
ahead. Sun is shining, so what more could you want?
It's a lovely day. Just I can't wait to get out in the garden. Be plenty of inspiring ideas after today's show anyway to
I'll be
help you
honest
on
and
your
say
way.
I can't wait to get away from the garden. This is the time of year that everything keeps growing. Stop, for
Well, it
goodness
does.
sake. Why can
The
we not
weed,
just get the garden perfect and then just take some sort of spray and freeze everything as it is and just leave that forever? When we get it
you don't,
exactly right, it's like, just leave it forever.
yeah, but then somebody would want to change something. So,
No, I wouldn't. I'm a
anyway.
creature of habits.
So, with the end of April comes the end of frosts. So, now's the perfect time to lay the groundwork of a beautiful spring and summer garden. Being in a natural green space is always delightful and hugely positive for our well-being, while gardening itself has proved a healthy and joyous activity. On top of all that, gardens have become a bigger selling point more than ever. Post lockdown, outside space became a huge priority for a lot of people,
Yeah.
um, mainly because they couldn't get out of their houses. So a garden was their sanctuary. It was their place where they could go out and they could relax, they could
Yeah.
exercise, and think about being able to entertain friends and things again and sometime in the future. Has it been like that for you, Jim?
Yeah, well, I always said to people, it's like if you don't have a garden, stick your head out the window and take a deep breath, and unless you're in a big suburban city, which actually has all the fumes. But just for something, just for some sort of peace of mind, you'd be amazed at how many times when you stand in your garden and it changes your whole being, your whole mindset, and everything like that. The classic example is right now. If you take a deep breath, you feel a lot of weight lifting off your mind as you hold it in and then let it out gradually. And that's the sort of chi, if that makes sense. We talk about, and it's what you get from the garden as well. So I would 100% agree that a garden has got to be the thing that you love the most, and it will sell a property. Now, in a market where it's really buoyant, and I've said to everybody during the winter period as well, it's like anything will sell at this point in time, because you could put the worst property on, and Jimmy will probably agree with this. You put the worst property on the market you could ever seen, and it will still sell over the home report value. And that's effectively what's happened, isn't it, Jimmy?
Yeah, it definitely has. That was the case. But coming in, what I'd say now is the importance of garden. It's going to be more relevant now as more properties come on the market. It's maybe not be that the case for every single property right now, because there is more and more stuff coming on the market. So having stuff like today and helping you get your garden right is going to pay dividends
Yeah.
when it comes to end result.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's good news is that you don't have to be an expert, and wait months to make your garden perfect. You can begin to enjoy it gradually. It's never going to be a finished work completely, something just to plod away on, and take that time just to relax. So whether you're looking to save for the summer where you live now, or you're getting ready to sell your home, you'll find everything here today in this article about how to sow the seeds of a glorious leafy garden. So the professionals tend to plan gardens out by numbers. Um, they'll divide it into thirds, or they'll have shapes. It's not just you've got a square garden, you've got your lawn in the middle, you've got borders around the outside, and you've got a few, the little bedding plants that everybody used to see, one blue, one white, one blue, one white, right round the corner of the garden, and maybe a little fir tree in a tub somewhere stuck in the middle, just for something different. Jimmy, you're quite new to gardening. What have you done with your garden?
This will be interesting. Come on, Jimmy.
I don't do gardening. I want to astroturf mine, so it's less maintenance and the kids can still play on it. But from the house that we bought, it's not finished yet, but we have done a lot of work in the garden. And you're right what you're saying about sections. When we come onto our back garden, we have a slabbed area where we've got like a picnic bench for the kids when they want to eat outside. But on the back of our garage, there was like a greenhouse on the back of the garage. We've knocked that down because we don't grow stuff. But we're turning in the process of turning that into a barbecue area, and we've stone chipped it all. So we can have a barbecue area and a sitting area, and it's going to be like a stone built worktop where you can eat your stuff on it. And then we've got the lawned area for the children to run and play, and it's still quite a big garden, as you'll both know. So we have got 3 different sections to our garden. You're right, one that suits the kids for ET time, when we have friends and families over, and for the kids to play as well. So we're covering all markets if and when we ever decide to sell.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I'll look forward to the invitation, Jimmy, to the barbecue.
Finish it first.
Finished product. So, as I said, landscapers, they treat it as almost like separate rooms. You know, you've got your living area of your garden, your kitchen area of your garden. You've got your vegetable garden, your playground, a wilderness. A lot of people are doing wilderness gardens now, and planting these seed, bomb seed things, so you get all the wildflowers coming up. So small gardens as a single room, think of it that way, and position your furniture so that it creates a really good little atmosphere, and have little plant pots and accessories and things.
Oh, you can see that.
It is another room.
You can see that classic example of Malt Row yesterday when I did the pre-portal launch for that. Malt Row's got an absolutely huge garden, but there's separate defined sections. I mean, at the rear, you've got the side driveway. It goes up on the other side of the house, and then it goes to the back shed, which has a huge amount of space. They've got that fenced off. Then they've got the deck, and it comes out the actual bedroom, so you can sit out there in the morning and have a cup of coffee in the sun. Mm-hmm. And then it leads onto the mini orchard, which is out there as well, and then onto the potting shed, and then onto the lazy area where you can just lie about in the sun, basically, on the stone chips. And you can go up to the actual decking, which is next to the back door, and then across to the barbecue hut if you want as well. And then you've got a separate defined play area at the rear as well. So it's all separately defined into different areas, and it works very, very well. Whereas you come to my garden, it's just all one big thing. It's like I've just done that.
Yeah, that's not bad in itself, though, Jim, because a garden has to suit the person that owns it and what their needs are for it. And you obviously don't need lots of little separate areas. I mean, your cats love your garden, your chickens love your garden, and I'm sure you do too, for the amount of time that you might get to spend in it. So it's all relative to what you need.
I've got a wee separate defined area right outside my back door, where you can walk into the kitchen, or you can walk in through the other patio doors, and it's enclosed, and so it sits in the sun more or less all day long, and it's enclosed so it doesn't get any wind either. And then, the only thing is just one big massive tree at 2:00 in the afternoon where the sun goes behind it. And it's like, okay, we've got to move our chairs. And then you wait for it to come round, and then you move your chairs back at 3:00 to the space you were before. But that's about it. That's what I love about the garden. It's just a nice, relaxing place. And it's close enough to the house for me to get the broadband so you can actually stream live music. And things that you'll maybe want to see or maybe want to watch. I tell you what, in Crail, I did see this guy, and he just opened this cupboard, and it was like a mass television. And he's starting on the wall, and it's like, oh my God. I thought I was expecting a big, massive dartboard or something like that. And it was a huge television. And then he says, that's that. And then he opened another shed, and it was like, this is my kitchen. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute. Talk about going to the extremes. It's like, but I tell you what, it did work.
One of the things that came up in yesterday's Thursday's show that Perry and I did was a lot of people are actually getting toilets put out in their gardens to save people having to come inside because they're spending so much more time out in the garden.
Okay, so we're going back to the 1950s.
Yep. Oh dear. Anyway.
I thought that was just what the bushes were for. Oh, that's for me.
That was that tree, Jim. One at 2:00. Oh dear. Right, we've got a couple of comments here. Anne-Marie is saying good morning. So good morning, Anne-Marie. Thank you for listening in.
Good morning. If you've got any questions, please feel free to ask them. This is a golden opportunity, or any advice or any information, you could do that yourself as well.
So to keep your garden in bloom for longer, stagger your planting dates or maturing dates. Gardeners call this succession planting.
Yeah.
You don't want to plant everything at once, especially vegetables and things, because then you're never going to be able to eat them all at once. You end up giving them away to half the neighbours.
That's good advice.
Yeah, and you get perpetual plants as well. We used to have perpetual spinach, perpetual lettuce. So you just leave them. You don't actually pick them right out the ground. You leave them growing, and you just pull the leaves off as you need them, which is also quite a good idea. Experiment with scale as well. Put larger plants towards the back against your boundaries, and then sort of taper it down towards the front. It makes it easier for weeding as well. A large single specimen plant in a small garden can add more drama than a cluster of miniatures. Try a bay or an olive tree in the sun, or a fatsia in the shade. We'll be talking about fatsias later on as well. So there's no right combination of plants. It's whatever you like. Have fun mixing shapes, colours, textures.
Do you think an olive tree would work in this climate? You think that would be possible? I mean, there was talk at one point, because climate change in the UK is getting a lot more, and the degrees are going a lot higher. Do you think there will be a time where we will put an avocado tree out and it'll grow?
I think there's a potential. I mean, there are people, grow grapes in this country. We have palm trees. So,
you see that now,
when you are to the beach, obviously the salty air can make things difficult, some particular plants difficult to grow, but it makes others, really flourish well. And the palm trees seem to do really well the closer to the coast.
I think it's probably because they adapt, isn't it? And the classic example of that is when I first went out to Portugal and Spain. It's like, whoa, wait a minute, the grass is completely different. I mean, the grass is grass, but the grass is more robust.
It's spiky, isn't it?
It's not the spongy grass that we have, but I bet you it's probably the same type of grass, but it's just evolved over the years to acclimatise to the climate it's in just now. Because I'm amazed that when you look at it, and a lot of the places in Spain where the plants, I mean, it's very dry there, and the plants continue to thrive regardless. So you kind of think to yourself, they must adapt and change somehow.
Yeah.
A lot of the grasses, sorry, carry on.
No,
a lot of the grasses in Spain, Portugal, they don't necessarily grow the best by water. It's actually sand that helps it grow a lot better. Because when I used to play golf, we used to not repair the turf by putting it back in there. You used to have a sand bucket, you fill it with sand, and that would actually help it grow better.
All right, I never knew that. That's and I suppose that's, when you think about it, I suppose that's quite appropriate, because you do have that down on the coast here. So when we go down to the beach and stuff like that, you do have the grass, and admittedly the grass is a bit different. So maybe you're absolutely right. It's the same it's the same strain, but just different methods of adapting to change to the environment, just like anything really. So I think that's the beauty of the beauty of that. About but back to you, Andrea. What's your thoughts on the garden by numbers? Do you think? I mean, you'd said initially, but is it something everybody should do, or just do it how you want to do it?
I think if you're starting off with a blank canvas, it's really good to work to a plan.
Yeah.
But if you're moving into a house that somebody else has either nurtured a garden, and you just want to stick with what they've done because it looks nice, or you want to gradually work on it, it can be quite expensive getting the garden done, taken back to a blank canvas and redoing it, the way that Charlie Dimmock does on garden.
I don't care about you, but that's when I give up the will to live when it comes to that. It's like I wouldn't know where to start. I've got 1,500 square meters, and most of it's laid to lawn, and it's an easy gig for me because you just get out and mow the lawn and that's it. and then, you know, a couple of robust bushes, which will actually keep over time, and you just trim them back now and again.
Yeah, well, it's like what Jimmy said about, you know, maybe making his lawn into AstroTurf, because that's what's going to work for them.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say, no, you know, AstroTurf's plastic and think of the planet. Well, my rear garden is all AstroTurf, and we've been here 6.5 years now, and it's the most fantastic thing ever.
So do you go out to hoover the grass?
No, I don't do anything with it at all.
No, okay. Because
there
is. I know people that, like, when I've been renting their house, it's like, I've got a hoover for this, and I go, what's this for then? That's for the grass. What?
Yeah, no, we just
like
the
grass.
Ours actually even grows some weeds. It looks so it's so natural. But I mean, AstroTurf doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to affect the planet just because it's plastic. You're saving on the fuel that you would be using to cut grass, the energy that's created in cutting large amounts of grass. So no, we're quite happy with our AstroTurf and saying whatever works for you. A lot of people don't have a lot of time to spend in the garden, but they still want it to be nice.
See, I still love, I don't know about you, Jimmy, or you, Andrea, but I still love the fresh smell of cut grass.
I get that from the neighbours.
Yeah, and for me, you know what it reminds me of? Sports day.
Yeah.
It reminds me of school sports day, because every time I used to walk from primary school up to King George V Park, on school sports day, you could always smell the grass being cut. And it's like... now, in hindsight, I think to myself, they're probably going in the morning and going, oh my God, it's school sports day, the day of the day. Let's get the grass cut. That's probably why, because I always seem to be cutting it on that day. But it's just that fresh cut smell. And it reminds me of that. And it's quite idyllic. And it's that mindset, and that this is when we talk about other shows about smells and how they evoke certain emotions. And for me, it actually invokes quite a positive experience and positive emotion. So that's why I kind of like it. Plus the fact I like walking on the grass in my bare feet, because it's just nice and it's just nice and soothing and calming, and it's like I'm going to get into my Wim Hof mood in a minute. But I don't know if that's experience for you. I mean, Jimmy, is that what it's like for you?
Yeah, I agree with you. I'd much rather have. Well, I agree with you both. I'd much rather have grass, but I think it does look better and it feels better as well, I would say. But going back to what Andrea says, I don't really have the time to spend the whole day doing my garden, because I'm either with the kids, with the family, or working. That's my two priorities. So I want to be either doing that or that. I don't want to be spending all my time in the garden. If I can have it one that suits the kids and I don't have to do anything with it, and I can go out there and watch them and be with them.
Here's a top tip for you to have everything, because you can have your cake and eat it. We're going to be talking about that in Wealth Creation Show on Monday at 12:30. Urban myths we're going to be talking about, and you can't have your cake and eat it, because the key here is watch the Wealth Creation Show. I'll teach you how to make more money. Go and pay somebody else to do it for you.
That would
be you've got everything. You've got your cake and eat it.
That would be the dream. Pay someone else to do it for me.
Oh dear. Anyway, for regular inspiration and advice, apart from coming to ourselves, and you can get the layman's view of it, you can tune into the likes of Radio 4 that does a weekly Gardener's Question Time.
Yeah.
Radio Scotland also does a Gardener's Question Time. Usually, I think it used to be a Monday morning. They had their gardener on through the summer. Great tips. It's wonderful listening to a gardening programme on the radio and someone says, oh, I've got this problem with my plant. And of course you can't see the plant and they can't see the plant, so you haven't got really much of a clue of what they're talking about. But it's always very informative, and they can give you really good tips on how to keep your chrysanthemums looking nice. Anyway,
we have a host nearby, actually. It lives in Leiden, Callum Scott. I mean, he's Beech Grove Garden. So Callum regularly appears on the Beech Grove Garden as a presenter, and he's local to Fife. So he's an excellent source of information. So you look up Callum Scott, and you'll see some of his videos on YouTube channels. Wealth information. A young guy, really up and coming in presentation skills, and especially in the gardening world, a big thing. I mean, for me, when I was younger, like, really, the gardening world. It's like Beech Grove Garden was an opportunity to switch things off and just, I'm going to see you, bye. But now it's actually quite enthusing. It's quite exhilarating actually to watch these sort of things and think, okay, what could I do here and what could I do there? How could I make it? How could I make it different? And it's exactly, Heather said there as well. Look, Heather says actually, get your kids involved, Jimmy.
Zara did help me cut the grass. So
I tell you what, Jimmy, here's the classic how to get your kids involved. And my dad used to do it on me all the time. He used to throw money into the garden and hide it. And when we'd dig it up, he'd go, oh, there might be more. And we used to dig the whole garden over for 10 pence. And it's like, oh my God. And literally, my dad did do that. Because I asked him later on, did you actually do that? Was that planned? And he went, yeah. He says, and it's a classic. So there's a way to get your kids involved. Throw a 50 pence piece in the garden, right? Get them to dig it up, and then they'll go, wow. And I go, hey, there might be more. And they'll be all over the place.
Yeah, it reminds me of the joke about the woman that wasn't able to dig her garden up anymore, and she couldn't get anybody to help her. So she phoned the police and said that her husband was missing, and they came and dug all the garden over. She said, I don't have a husband.
That was Fred West.
Oh dear. So some instant garden magic. If you're getting your home ready for sale, or you simply can't wait to be sitting outside among blooming flowers and leaves, instant gratification is just a garden centre away. About to bloom flowers are available to drop into pots, planters and beds for immediate colour, while adding a few larger plants can give your garden an established feel in seconds. Use your pots and planters to create a naturalistic vibe by choosing materials like ceramics, terracotta, wood or rattan. Remember that pots, baskets and planters need extra watering and food because of the smaller volume of soil and increased exposure to the wind. Create cosy spring twilights and evenings with storm candles, solar-powered lanterns and bulb strings. And add some interior design to your outdoor furniture with textiles and natural fabrics like wool and cotton. Think tablecloths, seat covers, cushions and blankets. And treat a long straight lawn to some organic curves with a few large plants staggered on either side. And liven up the plain patio or balcony with a patterned outdoor rug. It doesn't have to be a huge space. You can think of a small balcony and what a difference a little bit of furnishing on it can make.
Well, we had one at Uchtermuchty like that. I remember that one.
We did.
You went out the back and it's like, it's just had this balcony. It's like, wow. And you thought to yourself, it was wonderful inside, amazing space. But when you opened the balcony and just sat in there and you saw over, because it was on the slope at the back, it was over all the houses and it looked out to the rear. And I thought, wow, I mean, this is an amazing apartment. So, and he did have it all seated out and the wee different areas. I mean, he had these wee two-seater, that sort of Parisian look. The wee tiny coffee table and the two metal seats, and then you had over the other side, you had the wee planter pots on the other side, and then he had his fake grass down, and his astroturf down as well on there. So it just looked a business, and so it's amazing what you can do when you do it. However, one thing I think about all the time is, what do you do when it rains? I mean, we're thinking about all these things and putting out blankets and pillows and all the rest of it. I mean, what's your suggestion, Andrea, about what do you do when it rains?
Well, we have a summer house that we store things in, and we just pull the cushions for the furniture and everything. Not everybody has a space to store them, and it is something that you would need to think about because
maybe it's the way your plastic outdoor shed, plastic outdoor storage area, these ones you get for about 60 quid or something like that. Yeah,
you just need to make sure that when you do put them away for the end of the year, that they're really dry, or they'll get mildewy over, if they're in storage. But I mean, even if they've got mildew, you can just put loose covers over them. There's nothing to say you can't use them still.
Yeah. I'm always tempted to say, the wee silicone gel things that you get in all your packs. Well, look at the example of the
lateral flow test.
The lateral flow test. Well, believe it or not, Elaine actually saved all these up. And it's like, you just put them in. You could just put them in to stop damp and everything like that in certain situations. You just use them. So it's great to actually reuse things like that rather than just throw them in the bin. So it's so look at the opportunities. I mean, it'll all add up, because when you get tiny wee ones and you're maybe using, maybe every other day, in a whole year, you're talking about probably about 150 to 160 of them. But 150 to 160 of them, and to use them in certain places outside, like what you've said, is a perfect way to keep everything dry.
Yeah. And if there's 2 of you in the house, then double that. So yeah, there's a lot
Now,
of.
could I say there's 3? Then that would triple that.
You could if you wish.
And if there's 4, what would happen? You're in trouble because you'll be under a mountain of these bugs.
Oh dear. So, having fun with sun and shade. Obviously, you need to be careful when you're out in the garden in the sun that you've got your high factor sun lotion and everything on. But it is nice to have that place to sit in the actual sun. So whether your garden is always in the shade or roasting in the sun, it can be thriving and beautiful with the right plants in the right places. Nature is never wrong. Place your plants where the label says, and they'll pay you back in spades. And if you've fallen in love with a plant that won't grow in your garden, ask the nursery about a suitable alternative with the same leaf shape, size, and colour. So, among many splendid sun-loving plants are cardoon. Now, a lot of people might not know what a cardoon is, but basically it's related to the artichoke and the thistle, and they give you massive purple prickly blooms. They're amazing. Melianthus again is a huge plant of greenery, a bit like a rhubarb. So that size, it will grow to that. Echinops are little purple, spiky puffball plants, and of course fennel gives you a lovely sort of bronze green leaves in it, so it gives you that variety in colour. So perfect solutions for shade include making a Victorian style fernery. We don't often see a lot of them, but you can get some ferns that can grow up to 6 foot. You know, the Fatsia japonica, said we'd come about to talk about Fatsia. You can get that in different types. You do get a variegated one called the spider's web variety, and it's absolutely stunning. I mean, it will give you colour.
Are they much upkeep though? I mean, is it a continuous upkeep? Because you go to some of these houses and you look at these sort of spider plants in the rear garden and the ferns and everything, and as soon as it hits the spring and the summer, it's like they go boom, and some of them are actually quite overpowering.
Yeah, you would basically for your ferns and that, you will get the time where they will just grow and grow and grow, but then they will all die back in the winter. So then that gives you your time to go in and do your clearing out. So, you know, and the ferns will, what's the word? They will propagate themselves as well. So when they do die back, if you don't want them to keep spreading and spreading and spreading, that's your time to sort of dig it up. Or you can keep them in pots. If you keep things in pots, they're much easier to manage.
If you've got a big enough garden, though, you could actually just let them run riot. And if you've got young kids, it's like it's the jungle. You know, the amount of times that they could play in there and actually just have a fantastic time. And every single week, because it's like that's what I used to do all the time when I was young. I used to run up to Silverburn Park and just spend all my time during the day in Silverburn Park, and it was great. And just imagine what just all these different imaginations about role playing and what you could be doing, and we're soldiers and we're all these different things, and we're in the jungle. It's Indiana Jones, and I took the kids up and did that as well. You know, the same sort of thing. Took them through there and took them through an adventure and got them involved in imagining all these different things and this adventure. And literally, it was just trees and ferns. That was it.
Yeah. Heather's saying that ferns are the easy, cheap option, and they are because they will just keep coming up every year, a bit like poppies.
Literally, it's it's similar to one person's plant is another person's weed. That's the reality. And I was going to say that earlier on, how a lot of people actually abhor, certain types of plants and stuff like that. But the reality is, they're just actually weeds to them. So that's that's what I can see. Sometimes when that happens, there's you see lots of weeds. Look at the classic example as well when it comes to monoblock drives. A monoblock drive itself is a case where you've got Perry said that she put seeds, like normal like blossom seeds in the monoblock drive in between the monoblocks, and rather than actually weeds growing, she's got actually wee colourful plants growing. And then when you're walking up your paths and everything like that, it looks actually really, really nice. And I kind of thought, I never really thought about that, because obviously it keeps the weeds at bay, doing something like that, but it's actually a really cost-effective way and makes it look really pleasant. Only thing is how's somebody going to get up to your house if there's if there's nice, beautiful flowers in the path? It's like,
I know, they won't want to stand on them.
it's like, hello, hey, we'll just talk here.
Oh, dearie me. So anyway, you would follow nature's lead, and your garden will have tools it needs for continuous growth year after year. So talking about nature, the birds and the bees. It's okay, Jimmy, we're not going to have a serious talk here.
I think he's past that stage.
Maybe just. So you might be surprised to learn how crucial gardens are to the survival of many species, offering a far more stable habitat than regularly farmed fields. They can be a haven of biodiversity in rural and urban settings.
Yeah.
So the best flowers to attract butterflies and bees, I need to get my teeth in for this one, Erysimum bull's mauve, if anybody knows what that is. It can flower all year round, which obviously for the nature of the area and the birds and the bees and the butterflies, that's really, really good. And it's good for your garden as well, because it's nice to be able to have colour all year round. Linaria, it's got green leaves and it's tall and fluffy and elegant. Phacelia, it's also known as the fiddle flower. It has the highest pollen bearing, and also the humble marigold. Now, I love marigolds. The only thing that puts me off marigolds is you've got to keep planting new ones every year. I want a garden with hardy annuals, rather hardy perennials.
I knew that you would have to keep planting them every year. Why is that? They just die off and that's it. They're done.
Yeah, I mean, you might be lucky and they might sort of self-seed if you've got them in one particular area in your garden, but generally the annuals have to be done every year. So to cut down on the work in your garden, you'd really be looking to try and get some perennials there that are going to come up with no problem each year. I mean, even your pansies. I mean, some people are lucky and they can get pansies coming up every year, but most people buy new stock every year and plant them out. Same with the rubrica and all the nice, colourful things that you see in hanging baskets.
Yeah.
So plants such as oxeye daisy, achillea, and fox and cubs. Now, you've maybe never heard of fox and cubs. I had to look it up. It's pretty much like a weed. It's like an small orange dandelion, but it's an amazing colour. But as you said, one person's weed is another person's favourite plant. It's a bit like, almost like the cancer of gardens, because you cannot get rid of it sometimes. Once you've got it in your garden, it's there all the time. But it is a lovely colour, and it's one of these meadow flowers. So the healthier your plants, the longer pollinators will visit. So invest in a compost bin. Have you got a compost bin, Jimmy?
Nope.
Have you got a compost bin, Jim?
I used to. God, I think it was the back of the garden. We just used to put everything in like eggshells and that. My grandfather had one all the time and he swore by it because he was a keen gardener. So it was everything. We tend to put a lot of the stuff back to the hens, because the hens eat a lot. So, for example, potato peelings, you boil them first to take the starch out of them, and actually you can put them back to the hens and they eat them. And then things like, believe it or not, they're eggs. So the eggshells, you can actually, for hens, you can actually just clean them up, put them in the oven, bake them for a wee while, right? And then you crush them back down and the hens can eat them, and it becomes a source of calcium for them again, and also obviously aids their digestion as well. So that's what you can do with the eggshells for the hens. For other things as well, like veg, offcuts, again, the hens get it. They don't touch onions, that's dangerous to them. They don't touch mushrooms, that's dangerous to them. But it's just usual green leaf stuff tends to be perfect for hens. And they'll just consume all that, like your broccoli. I mean, the best part of your plant in a broccoli, the most nutritious, is the stem, and yet everybody chucks that away. So what we do is, I juice it, and then what I've got is the residue, which goes to the hens every morning. So these are all different things that instead of composting, if you've got hens, I mean, they'll devour everything more or less. So I used to have it, in a roundabout answer. I've just told you, used to have it, but the hens consume most of the stuff now.
Very good. Yeah, no, we don't have a compost bin either, but then, you know, the local councils take garden waste away now and do composting on a larger scale. So I don't feel the need to have a compost bin at home. Talking about hens' eggs, my husband does have a collection of eggshells sitting in the kitchen at the moment. He says they'll be really good for, I've read somewhere on the internet that it helps keep slugs away. So he doesn't quite know what to do with them yet. They're still sitting in the kitchen. That's been about 2 weeks now. So I did suggest to him that probably the easier way to keep the slugs away is actually putting the eggs out in the eggshells out in the garden. Probably crushing them up and putting them in the plant pots.
Yeah.
So I'm just waiting on him doing that. Righty-ho. So
one of the best places I've seen for kerb appeal and gardening is this one. This is Tarvet Drive. Remember this one?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was beautiful. I mean, it just look at all the different colours and look at all that, the way that's all set out, and then the front door as well, and the way that's all done.
Lovely.
It was just so much appeal. And then you walked in and you got the back garden. So again, back down to the defined spaces, isn't it? So you've got out the patio doors, you've got the patio at the back, you've got the decking, you've got down at the shed is down the bottom, you've got the chimney, and then at the side you can see that for, you know, in here where they're going to be sitting in the sun all day long as well. And then again from a different angle, and you could see that view over there as well. So you could, and they had that well thought out and well planned in terms of, and then the Monobot Drive for plenty of off-street parking. Again, see the pots as you come into the front door?
Yeah.
And all these, as you come in the front door, nice welcoming. And then even on the side gate, next to the garage, you've got a wee hanging basket. Now, could you imagine if you take all this away, how bare that would look? And yet, just that addition of these pots, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11, how much would that cost you? 35 quid, something like that? Maybe 3 quid each? At the local shop, 12, 40 quid. And that would just make a huge difference to your place. But could you imagine them without it? It would just look totally different, wouldn't it?
So, I mean, that house was absolutely stunning. I mean, I remember when it came up for sale, and you know, obviously the garden was a huge attraction for the buyers.
And again, you've got, see the planting boxes at the back there.
Yeah.
And then you've got the planters at the side and then hanging on the wall. So these aren't actually sitting in the earth. They're not sitting in a garden, so that you could easily take them out and put them in, or put them in a greenhouse off season if that's what you want to do. And you would, it would just had a stunning way. So when you look at all that, and then you strip all these plants in that landscape garden away, at the end of the day, it's just a house. That's it. But I tell you what, it makes it a home, doesn't it?
100%.
Yeah. And what you can do when you've got the majority of your garden in pots, you can take it with you when you move. You know, I mean, you just say to your buyer, you know, I will be taking my pots with me, but everything else in the garden will stay. Whereas if you
I would take my AstroTurf as well. It's like Mind the Money. You ever watch The Money Pit with Tom Hanks?
Oh gosh, yes.
I watched that film, and the woman says, and I'm taking that, and she went, hey, I'm just kidding. And she went, I'm taking that, and I'm taking this, and I'm taking that, and I went, hey, I'm just kidding. And Tom Hanks is going, okay then. So when Tom Hanks moves in, it's all gone.
There was no kitchen.
I was taking it. And even things like Mind the Sink and everything was gone as well. It's like she'd taken the sink, and she'd taken the cooker, and she'd taken things like the heating system as well, because she was going round and saying, I'm taking that as well. I'm just joking. It's like, I did tell you I was taking it. So you're absolutely right. I mean, you can just lift things like that and take them with you, and just make it clear that that's what you're doing. But it just sets off the whole mood, doesn't it?
Yeah. When I moved to the house that I'm in now, we had a few plants in the garden we were leaving, and they were actually in the ground. And we just said to them, you know, that particular rose bush, these were they were given as gifts to us for anniversaries. So we wanted to bring them with us because they were special. But as long as you make it clear that you are taking something out of the garden of the house you're selling, you're fine. But what you can't do is sell your house and then decide at the last minute, oh, I'm going to take that apple tree and I'm going to take, that expensive shrub.
A lot of people have anniversary and wedding presents that are in the garden. So
Yeah, sitting in the
quite a
garden.
common thing.
We've seen that in tenanted properties as well, where the tenants actually, I've had it in the past where the owners failed to tell us that there was a unique maybe a tree or a plant or something like that for them in the garden, and then the tenants actually removed it, and then they've gone, where is it? And I'm like, because it was my anniversary, and it's like, oh my god, it's like, why did you not tell us then? Surely you're bound to have known it. They were going to do the garden at some point in time because they were keen gardeners. So that has caused a wee bit of aggravation in the past. So if you're a landlord out there and you have a property you're letting, then make sure if there's certain things in the garden lying about that you don't want touched, that you inform your letting agent or you inform the tenants yourself if you're self-managing. Self-managing's a false economy, by the way. Watch our wealth creation show at 12:30 on Monday, and I'll tell you why. And you'll be able to stop that happening in the future.
Don't dig up the patio.
Well, right, okay, you didn't want to dig up my patio. Pet cemetery.
Oh, dear. So, getting into the zone, garden zones not only add character and style, they turn every corner into a special and valuable space. Beyond the lawn and the patio are so many options. So you could try the following zoning and edging ideas for inspiration, Jimmy. You got a trampoline, slide, or a climbing frame? Yeah, they rarely match or improve any garden design. So why not try and create a secret play space behind, say, a gazebo or a greenhouse or fruit trees?
That's a huge thing for kids and families, isn't it? The secret hideaways and stuff like that. I mean, I've spent many time. I remember, and this is like the Jim recollection show. Down memory lane, I remember we used to dig tunnels underneath in the garden and then line them with wood and actually, proper lintels and everything like that, and actually have tunnels all the way throughout the garden underneath. And you stick a crash helmet on, you'd go right through them and come out the other end and stuff. That's it. And then off the side, you'd have a den. That didn't actually last that much because the roof caved in. Luckily enough, we weren't deep enough for it to cause a problem. But we did cover it up with doors, actually, from the beach. We had got them from the beach and we covered it up with doors and then re-turfed it over again. So we had a den that you can go into as well. So that's the kind of things that we did in our garden.
Yeah. We had a little secret garden in my house when I was growing up. And the neighbours we used to... the years that my house was built, we had separate little buildings that contained the oil tank because there was no gas in the area at the time. And, the little bit behind the oil tank, that was our haven for playing. We used to climb up onto the roof of it and jump off. And
as long as you didn't see it behind the bike sheds.
That's the next paragraph, Jim. No, it's not. So, some more ideas for Jimmy in this amazing garden that he's going to get ready for us all coming for a barbecue. Railway sleepers, they're the perfect for building raised beds or for steps for an elevated deck.
Where do you get them now, though? I mean, can you get them anymore?
You can't get you can still get some of the old ones from reclamation yards, but most sawmills will actually produce brand new sleepers. The size of what railway sleepers were. So they maybe don't have that authentic, rustic, old railway sleeper look, but they're the same size and the same dimension, and they've been pre-treated and everything, so they're going to last.
Or you could nip down the leaving mouth and just get them when they're changing over with the new rail link going in.
Yeah.
Not that I'm advising to do that, but they're going to have to take all that track up anyway. So they're going to have to take all the traffic up. They can't use the old railway sleepers. So there's a huge amount of railway sleepers for a good 3 or 4 miles actually coming out of the ground. They've got to go somewhere. So there's a golden opportunity if you're wanting railway sleepers authentic from the Leadenmouth rail track, actually used in the 1950s and 1940s, then these are classic examples to use.
Agree.
A mini meadow or a patch of wildflowers supports biodiversity and makes a romantic reading spot with a chair or a bench. Well, I suppose if you're romantically feeling, then to have a nice bit in the garden like that is fine.
Yeah.
Kitchen gardens and vegetables and herbs don't have to be messy. You can put them into your borders amongst your other plants. You can put them into little pots on a vertical stand, and you can just have all the little names written on them so you know exactly what's what. You can natural edging solutions like woven willow, cinder blocks, recycled rubber, and natural stone keep everything in check with a stylish well edge. Tomatoes, spinach, and French beans are all available as plug plants. You can get them in the ground now for harvesting in around 6 to 10 weeks later. Again, you know, a lot of people grow their vegetables in amongst their flowers. They make use of all the
Yeah.
gaps in between, which is really
Well,
quite good and adds
there's-
another dimension to the garden.
There's also a train of thought. Actually, there's certain types of flowers that insects will not go near, and therefore you can actually grow vegetables next to these flowers because it actually is a natural deterrent rather than having to put pesticides or anything on them.
All right.
So actually you can grow organically. So this is a lot of farming technology that's, well, it's going back to the good old days of farming where the farmers from years gone by have worked out how to put certain types of plants with other crops that they're growing in order to warn off certain pests or insects that they didn't want to touch their crops, so they would get a higher yield. And plus the fact it improves organic farming and it's good for the environment as well because you're not using a pesticide which goes into the earth and goes into the actual product you're eating yourself. I mean, you know, you are eating that stuff, so that's why I tend to go for organic soya bean when I'm drinking organic milk. It's organic soya milk I go for because most of the soya is actually treated with Roundup, which is Monsanto, which was actually just done for cancer, because it causes cancer long term using all these Roundup pesticides and stuff like that. So, you know, top tip, if you can use a flower to help you or something to help you assist you're growing your vegetables and stuff like that and warn off certain insects. I mean, it's ready. All this information is readily available on the internet. And you think it's pie in the sky thinking, but it is really going back to the original days where these chemicals didn't exist. So you can get all that information on YouTube videos on all the advice from professionals and experts in their field, how to do that. So it really is good top tips. The one about the trampoline you said was quite interesting, Andrea. I went round to somebody's house the other day to value it in series, and they had the old, they had their pond. So what they'd done is, because their kids were so young at the time, they'd actually just drained the pond and sunk the trampoline into it. And the trampoline was perfect. It was actually, it was perfectly level with the grass, but it had that big, huge, massive base to it where the kids could just jump up and down, and that was a good use of the pond. We drained our pond exactly as well because we had Buddy who had the cerebral palsy. He was a cat. We were always terrified it would actually end up falling in the pond and he'll not get back out. So we drained the pond for that reason, and they just utilised it for something else. So these are all different things you can do and make use of the existing spaces that might not be as safe in your garden for maybe younger children, maybe for pets, and you can repurpose them for something else. So this is really good top tips that you're talking about for that reason. Jimmy,
Yeah.
have you found that as well? You know, I mean, if you had to do anything different to your garden, you're probably going to say no.
Well, our garden was needed a lot of work, so we had to make it safe to be beforehand because the greenhouse / summer house attached up to the garden was unsafe, so we had to knock it down.
I've always had a worry about that, you know, just the kids falling against a greenhouse or something. I mean, you know, they say it's all nice and tough and glass, but it's just a thought. It's like, you know, why would you take the risk if that's the case? Even if you put sticky back plastic, you know, the sort of transparent on it on the bottom around the bases. So if anybody does fall against it, then it doesn't actually shatter and it just cracks and that's it. And it's safe, and you can still continue to use it. But you're absolutely right. That's the type of things we did as well. We just made it a lot safer in the garden for that reason.
You do have to kind of do a risk assessment of your garden when we've had to do it on our garden for grandchildren now. So, and you think, don't run, you're going to trip, and they just go absolutely bombing around the grass and everything, around the AstroTurf.
Well, kids didn't mind, and kids are quite resilient. You can see what we've done, what we did when we were younger, like tunnels and it's like dens underneath the ground, and the very fact that, I mean, some of the places, I mean, my dad had, I'll be honest, when I think about it now, my dad did actually go down and check the tunnels, because the tunnels were about 6 foot deep. And then you think about, I mean, it was only enough for us to crawl through in terms of that, to get through. So we actually took the edging the edging that you get, the concrete edging that you get on the paths. Well, we took these lintels and put them up the side, and then we put solid wood along the top, and then we boarded it with floorboards. We cut them all up with floorboards to support the top, almost like how they did it in a mine in the olden days. But I tell you what, for a child, that think about the skills that actually teaches them and how to do that, and how to learn all that. And we had all our mates get involved as well, so we all built this together in the back garden, and I had our own den as well as a result. So it was a huge learning curve for us, but we loved it, and it kept us out of mischief because we were doing that instead. It wasn't great when we're using candles and stuff, because obviously there's chances of getting fire and stuff like that. But hey ho, that's the things you do.
Did you take the canary down with you, Jim?
No.
Jimmy won't know what we're talking about.
Tell you what, when somebody let one go, everybody was out of there pretty quick. It's like, didn't light a match, for God's sake.
Oh dear. So what's your next step? Are your knee pads at the ready and gloves at hand to give your garden or balcony a spring injection? It really is the perfect time. If you're wondering what local buyers are looking for in a garden, why not get in touch with us? Just contact us at any of our offices or on our website at www.fifeproperties.co.uk, and we'll tell you all you need to know. So any other helpful hints and tips that you can think of, Jimmy, for a garden as a newbie gardener?
So gardens are becoming a deciding factor on people whether they purchase a house or not. So my key things that I think of when I'm speaking to buyers, that they like is privacy would be a one. So when we're talking about these certain plants and stuff that can grow quite high, and maybe plant them down the edges, so it has that little bit of privacy as a key one, and then color being the other one. You can see what transformation a few pots had for Target Drive, and I think that would be another key one for me. So privacy and color are the two ones that I like to focus on when I'm giving people advice when I'm going out to see them in terms of preparing, getting ready for the market.
Yeah.
And Jim, any sort of last thoughts on what your best tip would be?
I'm quite clinical, and everything has a place and a place for everything. So well-defined areas. And I'll go back to saying, when I spoke to the people to Daniela at Malt Row, I told her, this is what you should do here. You should put stone chips on this bit here, and you should do there. And you've got that perfectly done there. So we had a discussion about that, and we laid it all out perfectly. So there's well-defined areas. Now, she had most of these things already, but it was just all I was doing was adding that just additional value about what the thought process and how people walk in the door, and then what they see at the front door when they walk in as well, and how that would look round the side and how that would look round the corner. So it's that sort of thing, I would say. If you are looking to sell, then that's the sort of stuff you do. If you're looking to live in it, then, I think you should get your kids involved as much as possible. If you've got young children, you've got young grandchildren, and just let them have a field day in it. You've got an overgrown bit at the back of we've got a wee tunnel bit in the back of our trees, and it was always called the secret garden. And it was a wee tunnel you go through, and you go to the back shed, which is the wee shed at the back, which the kids played in all the time, and that's still at the back of the garden now, waiting for the grandkids. Hint, hint, Tony. No pressure now. So that's the sort of thing you would love to get the kids involved. And really, to be honest, take a wee bit of thing about that, about what I've said to you about getting the kids digging the garden. Throw a 50p piece in there and get them digging it up. Literally, because they'll be there all day. But the great thing is, it's healthy for them, and it's soothing and relaxing for them because they're doing it as well, and they're getting rewarded for it as well at the same time. So now and again, it's like sticking another 50p in somewhere where they can find that on an occasion. And then also, if you've got, we actually went down to the golf course. So we went down to the local golf course years ago, and my dad would just get sand. And it was literally at the beach, the golf course, where they got their sand. So we got the same sand, and they would take it up to the house, and he'd put it at the back of the garage. And I spent hours upon hours for days on end actually playing cars and tunnels all the way through that, just in these making big mountains, digging big tunnels with my hands, making the wee matchbox cars go in and out at the other end. My pals would be at the other end digging tunnels. We'd be meeting in the middle together. Sometimes it would collapse. We'd have great fun. We'd pack it all together again, start again. So these are all just wee things that you could keep your kids involved and your grandkids involved all the time with, and they'll have fantastic fun out of your garden all day long, especially at this time of year. Now it's a lot warmer. Even, to be honest, probably in the winter. You know what kids are like. They're quite resilient, eh?
Yeah.
So that's my advice. If you're selling, make sure it's all clinically laid out and proper and got the part. If you're not selling and you're looking for advice, get something that will involve the kids and the grandkids and everybody else. That's what I would say. Two different aspects. What about yourself, Andrea?
Well, I would say if you're going to be selling your house and you've got things in your back garden that are maybe a bit tatty, if you can't do them up, get rid of them, replace them if you can. No point in having a trampoline there that's got the sides of it all broken down and it's got a split in the middle.
Dig a pit and have a fire. Get the potatoes out. Genuinely, that's what. Again, we come back to saying that's who I grew up. I went to Pete Webster along the road. Pete Webster used to just dig a big fire pit in the back garden, chuck everything in, and goes, "I'm having a bonfire." He's coming out. Yeah, I'll be there, and I was there, and it was like I just love it. I used to love it.
Potato in the foil.
Yeah, you'd take the potato in the foil, and you'd have charred potato, literally charred. You were eating just charcoal. But I tell you what, that sort of taste always brings me back to that brilliant memory. And that's probably why when you put stuff on the barbecue and it burns, it's like, I'm no bothered. It just, I think it's great because you remember all these different emotives and emotions involved in when you were a lot younger and how great it was at that time. So, I know obviously health and safety nowadays says, oh, you shouldn't be having fires and all the rest of it, but what they didn't ken doesn't hurt them. No, that I said that. We disclaimer here. But finally, you could wrap up, Andrea. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, finally, I'd like to say thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed your wee morning off, Jim, from being host. Yeah. And Jimmy, thanks. I hope we've given you loads of ideas to go out and get stuck into that garden, some fresh inspiration. It doesn't look like it, does it?
Yeah, we've actually got borders across the garage, and the kids they grew sunflowers last year that got about 8 foot high. So I think that's where we can do stuff similar like that with their kids this year as well.
It's when kids take pride as well, doesn't it? Just growing it in the house and then teaching them. One of the things I actually taught my kids to do was actually grow potatoes in a bag. So I didn't really want to dig up the garden and all the rest of it. So I just got a bag. I stuck the potatoes in there. I showed them how it was done. And now Tony does things like that now. Because that's what I was taught when I was younger. How you do cucumbers, tomatoes, all these different things involved in the garden. And it just gave you that. It just gave you that different view of things. I think that's what a lot of us actually tend to forget now. We're focused so much on phones and tablets and computers. We forget that the great outdoors is free. That's it when it comes down to it.
Yeah. Okay. So if anybody has got any other ideas or suggestions for what will help make your garden into a beautiful haven to live with or to help your property sell, please put it in the comments and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. So I think that's it for today. Thanks again, Jim and Jimmy. And we look forward to seeing you on next week's show.
Guys.
It's goodbye for her and it's goodbye for him.
Bye just now.